Okay, we're ready to start.
Okay, so Yali Madad everyone. I'm Semin, your facilitator for tonight. Thank you all for joining us this very special evening. You're in for a real treat entitled Treasures of Light. But before I introduce our speaker, Dr. Hassam, I'd like to call upon Naushad Jina to recite a Ginan for us, please. And then I will introduce Dr. Hassam. So everyone should be on mute, as well as, if possible, not too many video showing.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Ekare divo tari dehi ma ani bijo divo sata param ekare divo tari dehi ma ani bijo divo satama ja sudi divo mare nahi kya lagi taro jiva fera khaya re e dive divo cha sudi mare nahi kya lagi taro jiva fera khaya re karshan ji bhane re arjuna samharo echi ali Allah ekakari jaan jo te mahe shankar maana jo ladara ek rupa amaro jaan jo te murtaza ali avatara ali Allah ekakari jaan jo te mahe shankar maana jo lagara che to rekhi saro bura kahe sacha Satguru ji.
Oh, I have to take this, either this or that.
Thank you so much, Naushad.
Join meeting
Okay, so now we have to make sure everyone's muted because we're hearing lots and lots of voices. So before we begin, Nusra is there.
Blue color. Join
Okay, I'm going to do another mute all, okay?
Okay, yes, perfect. Except myself. I'll unmute myself.
Yeah, right? You'll have to unmute.
Okay.
Blue ma cheez de.
Okay, Dr. H, are you ready to take it away?
I am ready.
An evening of enlightenment. Thank you so much, Dr. Hassam.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Let us begin, first of all, by acknowledging and prostrating before the praises of our holy Imams based on this wonderful Ginan of Holy Pir Shams, and also the theme of the verse which Naushad recited, And I will only take 3 verses from Haktu Faktu, simply the translation. The translation says, You are the eternal truth, and you are the holiest divine being. To you belong the dominion of the heavens and the earth. Most gracious also are you, O Ali, you and none else but you. You are the sustainer of all beings, and most merciful are you. The beginning of all things is from you, and the end of everything is unto you, you and none else but you. You have created, and further you have given order and proportion to your creation. Indeed, you brought everything into existence, O Ali, you and none else but you. You are the originator of the heavens and the earth, and everything which belongs to dry land and water on this earth. And your rule is extended over all of them. O Ali, you and none else but you. Today, my subject is treasures of light, and I will add to that and favors from heaven. What does this topic imply, and what does this mean? Like last time, I just like to say that I am using a conversational mode, a dialogue mode with all the participants, because I think that is the one that most of you have preferred. And I can promise you, in the future, we will recap these topics in a lot more depth and with a lot more information. But today, in this particular area, I'm giving you a snapshot of what I mean by the spiritual treasures of light and favors from heaven. In order for us to contextualize the topic, let me ask and pose a question. And the question is first, have you ever wondered what is the origin of Ismaili Satpant Dharam? Meaning, what is the origin of Ismaili faith? Is it simply the historical origin that we often are presented with, which is of course correct, historically speaking, but meta-historically, meaning going beyond history, metaphysically speaking, meaning going to the realm of spiritual wisdom and beyond. Ismaili faith has existed from beginning of creation and even before. This is the reason why in some of the holy Farman, Hazrat Imam Sultan Muhammad Shah alayhi salam has mentioned to us the term that the Ismaili faith is timeless. It has come from the beginning of times. Now, why is this information important? This information is important because it is important to realize that the beginning of everything that has ever been, that is now, that will ever be, and the end of everything that will eventually be is summarized into this one holy concept, and that is the concept of Nur. This concept of Nur, as we know in our tariqah, is the center point. So let me put it to you in another way. And that is, whenever you think about our faith, you think about our holy faith, you think about Ismaili Tariqah, you think about Ismaili Satpant Dharam, the word that follows immediately after that is Nur. Ismaili faith is a faith of Nur, nothing else. That encompasses the Alpha and the Omega of everything. It is the A to Z of everything. I say this and I underline this because without this context, there may be a tendency to take a different path, to understand things differently. Nur is the fundamental concept of Ismaili faith, nothing else. The master, the bearer, the owner of that holy Nur is Maulana Hazar Imam, please say Salawat. He is the Nur. He is the origination. He is the end of all ends. He is the beginning of all beginnings. If you are following my logic, if that is indeed the case, and it is, then indeed, if Ismaili Satpant Dharam is the faith of Nur, then the faith itself must be Nur, because it is in this path that the Nur has always manifested itself. Again, as I have mentioned to you perhaps in my last session, I will have an opportunity in the future to expound on this concept of creation related to the concept of Nur in one of the future sessions. But today I want to make the link of this foundational understanding directly related to the practice of our tariqah as we practice it today. So, to this point, I want to specifically and very strongly underline and emphasize that anything that is being said outside the context of that Nur is something that is not of our making or of our practice. The concept of Nur has a very specific meaning in our tariqah. Hence, the concept of light has a very specific meaning in our tariqah. In that regard, as I will continue to emphasize, everything we do in the practice of our faith is related to this Nur and must be related to this Nur, because this Nur is nothing but the Imam of the time, and all the Imams who have come before our beloved 49th Imam, and even before the first revealed Imam, Hazrat Maulana Murtaza Ali alayhi salam. If the concept of Nur is what it is, that is timeless, and it has come from the beginnings of time, I'm sure by now, especially because of the amazing event of Laylatul Qadr that we had, that you can relate to this foundational principle that even what was revealed to the Holy Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam on that night of Laylatul Qadr was the Nur. And I think you know that by now, that when the Holy Prophet received this revelation, and we said a revelation, did anyone actually see the Holy Prophet come out of this cave of Mount Hira, this mountain of light? Did he actually come out with a book in his hand and say, here is the revelation? No, he did not come. The history of how the Holy Quran was eventually compiled and came to be, it's a separate subject. But you need to be able to emphasize then what was it that he came out with? What he did come out with was
Did you try again?
the spiritual revelation. That is to say, whatever was to be revealed to him came to him in the form of Nur. Simply to give you this point of contact. Because later on, if not today, perhaps in one of the very near future sessions, we will be speaking in terms of this Nur. So let me just emphasize one or 2 points that regarding this point of contact, that is, if you take it from the beginning, and then you look at the revelation that the Holy Prophet got, and I keep emphasizing the connection is with the Nur, then look what the Holy Prophet says. The Holy Prophet says, the first thing that God created was my Nur, my light. I repeat, Holy Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam says, the first thing that God created was my light, my Nur. Then he says in another quotation, I am from Ali's Nur, and everything is created from my Nur. Then he says, I am from Ali's Nur, and the creation is from my Nur. Holy Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam says, Ali created me. Ali created my Nur first. There are so many such quotations. The Holy Prophet goes on to say, I was a prophet of God when Adam was yet in the making. The Holy Prophet says, I am sent as a prophet to all created beings, not just Muslims. He further says, I have been in existence in Quran after Quran until this Quran. This hadith, by the way, is quoted in Sahih al-Bukhari. Something amazing that the Holy Prophet says, he who has seen me has seen God. It's a hadith. We will come back to those at some point. But let me just summarize this whole quotations by various hadiths and from the Holy Prophet by this one hadith which I have quoted in the past, where he says, it's a hadith al-Qudusi. For those who do not remember, hadith al-Qudusi means God used the tongue of the Prophet to speak directly from his holy mouth to the people. And there are 40 such hadiths. And the hadith says, O Muhammad, had it not been for you, I would not have brought creation into existence. And in another place it is said, had it not been for Ali, I would not have created you, Muhammad, unquote. So the point here is very strictly and specifically to emphasize this connection with the notion of Nur. And just to add a little bit more detail, when we speak about creation, when the Holy Prophet speaks about creation, he says that the first thing that God created was my Nur. I am from Ali's Nur. My Nur and Ali's Nur is one. I am the source of creation. Is that creation only material? No. It is the totality of creation. And just to give you a little example, because sometimes people have said to me, can you elaborate with some examples? So based on the terminology based on the terminology derived from the Quran, Muslim metaphysicians or Islamic metaphysics speaks of 5 states of being or presences. Now they are a bit technical, but this is only to emphasize how, for example, in the Quran, some of these things are expressed. So the Holy Quran, as I said, based on the terminology derived from the Quran, it speaks about Alame Nasut, Alame Malakut, Alame Jabarut, Alme Lahut, Alme Ahut. Sometimes they add a 6th layer or a 6th level, if you like, or a 6th state, and they call it Al-Insan Al-Kamil. Now what are these things? So Alme Nasut, the first one, is the terrestrial or the physical domain which is dominated by man. In fact, the whole created universe in its physical state and physical stance is the Alme Nasut. Then the Alame Malakut. Alam means world, simply put. There are other words that expresses it, but I'm just using the simple term. Alame means world. So Alame Malakut refers to the world of psychic and subtle manifestation. Alame Jabarut means the intelligent world or the world of angelic substances. Alame Lahut, that is the world of divine names and qualities, or it is the realm of the universal intellect, also identified with pure being. Alme Ahut, the 5th one, is known as the world of divine essence. Sometimes, metaphysically speaking, technically speaking, is known as ipseity. Now to this, I have to say to you, our holy peers have added one more layer beyond the 6th one that I mentioned. This is the Al-Insan Al-Kamil, which is actually the concept of the universal being in which all the states are contained. And of course, that is in reference to the Logos. Again, I'm using simply a philosophically technical term, which is referred to the Nur of Holy Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. But this 7th state is not mentioned in other spiritual literature. It is mentioned in one of our Ginans known as Girbavli. And this Girbavli says, Alame Bahut. This layer or this state of being or state of presence, if you like, it is the secret of the Holy Imam. It is the inner secret of our Satpantaram. It is the inner secret of our spiritual practice. And only the Imam and the Imam only takes us there. And for the murid of the Imam, that is a realm that is in existence. Inshallah, with Maula's blessing, in the near future, I will have an opportunity to go into these definitions, but I wanted to mention these in the context of creation. All these realms I've mentioned, all these realms, Alme Nasut, Alme Malakut, Alme Jabarut, Alme Lahut, Alme Ahut, Al-Insan Al-Kamil, and Alame Bahut, all of these are part of this creation that Holy Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam's Nur is the source of creation. So simply I wanted to say that don't limit creation to the physical realm. There are realms upon realms upon realms upon realms and layers of creation. In some other definition, we may call them, there are cosmic spheres. Our Gnan speaks about the 14 cosmic spheres. In some of the writings of our Da'is and Hadith of the Holy Prophet, they speak about 18,000 worlds. And of course, in our dua in the Quran, when the concept of Rabbal Alameen, say Lord of the worlds in plural. What are those plural worlds? Well, it is a subject in itself, and hopefully we might be able to shed some light in the future as to what they pertain to. So these notion of creation from the Nur is so extensive, it is so fundamental to understand, because it is a basis of simply understanding the point that I made essentially in the beginning, that everything is related to the Nur. Ismaili faith means Nur. Let me put it to you into another context. And again, I'm not taking time tonight for the greater definition, but I've done it before, and you have perhaps heard elsewhere, and you may have read it. The whole notion of the Sharia, the Tariqat, the Haqiqat, and the Marifat. What is that? You know it. You know it. The Ismaili faith, which is a Tariqah, its focus is the Haqiqat. And the Haqiqat is the recognition of the Imam of the time. And that is the spiritual recognition. You heard that wonderful part that was recited in the beginning by Naushad, when it says, Ali Allah Ek Kadi Jano. That was the beginning of the Ginan. It says, do not separate Ali and Allah. Do not separate the Imam and Allah. They are one. And that verse of Ginan says, have no doubt about it. This is the direct implication of this ultimate and fundamental, indisputable reality. As I have quoted to you the verse from Haktu Baktu, they say, you are the eternal being. You are the ultimate reality. O Ali, no one, none else but you. That very reality, that ultimate hakikat, the ultimate reality, it is nothing else but the nur of Maulana Hazar Imam. Please say salawat. Allahumma salli ala. That being said, the state of marifat, which is after hakikat, is the divine union, when, for those who seek it, the soul of the murid becomes one with the nur of Hazar Imam. That is the state of spiritual enlightenment. That is the stage of salvation. And that is the stage of oneness with the nur of Mawla. That is the state of marifat. Now, if that is the case, and indeed in Ismaili esoteric practice, that is the foundation of our belief. That is the essence of our belief, that everything is from the Nur. I repeat, and dear participant, I hope you bear with me in understanding this, because I am trying to make a point, and I shall come to the practical part in a moment. But this is so fundamental that I must state that without this understanding, we will fail to understand the inner practices of our tariqah. And it doesn't matter whether our practices are from different parts of the world. Because our beloved Imam has said, he and he only is the one who is responsible to define those practices. As an example, whether we recite Ginans in Jumat Khana, whether we recite Qasidas in other parts of the world and in Jumat Khana, whether we recite Mankabats, whether we recite Masnavis, or other forms of devotional practices which the Holy Imam has accepted. Underline the word Holy Imam has accepted. All of that is acceptable. The key point here is, has the Imam accepted the practice? The answer is yes. Then it is 100% within the context of the practice of the Nur. Meaning, the Imam has to accept it. And once Imam accepts it, that's where the benefit is. Now, let me read before you a talika that Imam Maulana Hazar Imam had sent to the Ismaili Association way back then of India, and it was in September 25th, 1964. It was a message from the Holy Imam to the Ismaili Association for India, Bombay, on the occasion of All India Ismaili Religious Conference. So the point is this, from the information we have, this conference took place, and one of the objectives of the conference was to discuss our practices. What practices? Our tariqah practices that we practice in Jumat Khana. And in this context, our beloved Imam reminded the leadership at that time in this conference the framework within which they should consider and adopt to discuss our practices. So please listen carefully, and I quote, our beloved Imam says, the ceremonies and customs which you will be discussing are the backbones of our faith. And for this reason, your discussion should be guided by clear thinking, restraint, and above all, faith. I'm sure you will never forget that our faith is based on thousands of years of history, and that we should learn from history and not to think that our past is of no use to us now, and that it can therefore be rejected, abbreviated, or altered, unquote. Let me emphasize the last part. Our beloved Imam says, I'm sure you will never forget that our faith is based on thousands of years of history, and that we should learn from history and not to think that our past is of no use to us now, and that it can therefore be rejected, abbreviated, or altered. This was the framework within which the expectation our beloved Imam was and is that we should practice our faith. Don't think that our faith is of the past and it has no use to us now. Don't think you can just reject, abbreviate, or alter. Well, you know, any religion, any faith have aspects in them that are time marked. Even Ismaili faith. But remember that in the Ismaili faith, it is only the Imam of the time who has the power, the authority, and the sole and exclusive prerogative to make those changes in practice. In other words, there may be a form and there is the essence that guides that form. There is never a change in the essence. I hope you understand that. The essence can never change, but the form changes. But no one has the authority in the Ismaili faith to change the form, whether it be the form of prayers, whether it be the form of any of its practices. No one has that authority except Mola Bapa himself. Only the Imam of the time can decide at his own pleasure and at his own behest that a certain form should be changed. A simple example is this. Before we recited the Arabic dua that we had, which as you know was introduced by our beloved Imam. Before that time, and it was composed during the time of Imam Sultan Muhammad Shah alayhi salam, we recited a dua that had 20 parts as opposed to the 6 parts, or in contrast to the 6 parts that we have now. And sometimes many people wonder, wow, we had 20 parts of that dua and now we have 6. Well, let me tell you this. Those 20 parts of our dua and the 6 parts we have, there is no compromise on the essence. No compromise at all. The essence is there. The language may have changed, but not the essence. The form has changed, but not the essence. Therefore, it is the Imam of the time who decides according to the time how, when, where, and in which manner the form should reflect and encompass that essence. Now, if we understand that, and let us say that we understand that on the basis of what it is, we are now ready to explore, beginning the exploration of the whole concept and notion of the spiritual treasures of light and favors from heaven. So let me preface that all that I've said so far is the backdrop against which I hope that you can position what I'm going to say. I wanted to make some slides, but I will make them in the future because it was a little too late for me to put them into perspective. But for today, for this particular part, I think it will suffice that I continue just this dialogue on the basis of what I have started. So what are these treasures of divine light? What are these favors from heaven? Let me say this thing to you right at the outset. As I have said, and I continue to emphasize, everything that we practice from the esoteric point of view, in our tariqah, in our holy faith. Someone might say to me, and they've said it to me in the past, why do you say holy faith? I say holy faith because it is connected and it emanates from the holy Noor. It is the Noor. It comes from the Noor. This dharam, this din, this path that we call Sirat al-Mustaqim is the path of Noor. Noor is Sirat al-Mustaqim. Wherever the Noor is, that is Sirat al-Mustaqim. The path of this practice is Sirat al-Mustaqim. Did you notice one thing when I read this message about our tariqah practices? Maulana Hazrat Imam said, our beloved Imam said, the ceremonies and customs. He didn't use any other words. People use other words, and you know what? I have no qualms with that. But I am focusing on the fact that the Imam says here, ceremonies and customs. Obviously, he's speaking about our spiritual ceremonies and our customs which emanates from that spirit, from that esoteric. Social and cultural customs may change based on the countries and depending where people come from. And that's perfectly okay. It's part of that wholeness and that is integrated with the process. But These are spiritual matters. So once again, as I start this process, there are two things. I have selected for this presentation tonight some broad concepts, but there are the minor concepts, not minor in the sense that they are below, but in a sense that there are other aspects of these which I will mention, and depending on how much time we have at hand, to basically see how far we can get with that. So, if you are following my trend of thought, and I hope that you are, and if you are following the logic that I'm trying my best to put before you, that everything in the Ismaili Tariqah, I repeat and will continue to repeat, in our practices, it's based on the concept of Nur. Everything, absolutely everything. There is nothing that you can say that is in connection with our holy faith and our practice of the faith and our tariqah practices in Jamaat Khana, no matter where, is connected with the Nur. So, let us give it a beginning. What are these divine treasures of this Nur and this holy light? What are these favors from heaven? Why do I say favors? Because you will come to realize the practices that we have in Jamaat Khana, these tariqah practices that we have, they are not fabricated by any human being. It's not that a human being made these practices, concocted these practices, went and put something together and then brought it in Jamaat Khana for our practice. No, absolutely not. All our practices have their root in a spiritual divine origin. And that origin is the Nur of the Imam. It is the authority of the Imam. Now, as I'm beginning, let me just emphasize a couple of points because I think those are fundamental, and before I forget them. When I said the origin is from the Nur, it is the will and the authority of the Imam. Do we understand this concept of the will and authority of the Imam? Look at it this way. Whatever we do in the context of our tariqah practices, first it has to be authorized and accepted by the Imam. And when it is, and the Imam say, this is the practice that you follow. And we may come to some of the historical aspects. But what's the foundational point? What is the essence here? What is the crux? What is the core? The crux, the essence, the core is, it is the authority of the Imam in that. It is the will of the Imam in that. Meaning, when the Imam expresses his holy command, when it is a farman of the Imam, when it is a divine command of the Imam, and the Imam accepts it, whatever it may be, whatever form it may be, whatever dimension it may be, but when the Imam accepts it, and the Imam said, this is what I want and this is what you should do, in it there is the authority and the will of the Imam. As a result of that will and authority of the Imam, that practice is loaded, I underline the word, that practice is loaded with the blessings, the grace, the mercy, the compassion, the love of the Imam. And when that practice is put into practice, it becomes beneficial to the soul and, of course, to the whole being of the human being. Very important point. Secondly, Because I've said everything is connected to the Nur. And these are divine favors. They are favors from heaven. Means it is attached to our soul. Everything that we do that is connected with our holy practice and tariqah practice in Jamaat Khana, that is connected to the holy Nur of the Imam, is connected to our soul. Meaning to say, our practices essentially, in its essence, is intended for the salvation of our soul. It is not intended to make the physical realm in which the soul lives, to make it a permanent abode. Our practices is intended for the liberation, for the freedom, for the salvation of our soul. And everything we do, whatever, however minor you look at it, though there's nothing minor about it, everything is connected to the holy Nur of the Imam. And if that point is understood, I am hoping, and I am asking you to bear in mind, and I'm asking you in your own understanding, in your own akal, in your own intellect, in your own means and purpose of tariqah practice, that you now reconceptualize our practices, our tariqah practices, as Hazar Imam says, ceremonies and customs. They are not just physical by nature because of the physical gestures and postures that we observe. Our tariqah practices are related to our soul. And of course, by virtue of our soul, to the Nur of the Imam. So, I want you to bear in mind this concept that when whatever the practices we are, which I'm getting into it now, you think about Nur. You think about the soul and how that benefits the soul. At the end, if there is time, I'm going to add some more footnotes to what I've just said. So, the first one, just to take a universal concept. If you think about the book of the Quran, what does that refer to? Well, in general terms, as people have understood, remember, there are many aspects to it, but the Holy Quran is, what is the Holy Quran? It is revelation from that light. It is revelation from the Nur. As I've said a moment ago, what came down on the night of Laylatul Qadr, as people say the Quran, it was the Nur that came down. Meaning, came down in a sense, not to say, I want to clarify this, not to say the Nur was never on earth. It always was and always has been. And I will explain that just in one little second. But in order to give a context of beginning from the last prophet that came on earth, Holy Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, it was to introduce to humanity who is the bearer and possessor of that Nur, and where is that Nur manifest. So when we speak about the Holy Quran, it is in that context. It is revelation from the Nur. There are, there are 49 references of Nur in the Quran. And each one of them, specifically in the context of our tariqah, Nur has a very special relationship and very special meaning in our tariqah. And you know the verse, the Surah Nur, or Surah of Light, and I'm only taking 2 sentences from there, that begins by saying that Allah, God. Listen carefully. Allah is the light of the heavens and the earth. So it speaks about heaven, you may say creation, and that of the earth. And then down the road into this ayah, it says, light upon light. We'll come to that concept in a moment. And it says, God, it says Allah, doth guide whom He will to His light. Allah doth guide whom He will to His light. Does that mean there are those who are not guided to this light? Well, here it says that He has retained that prerogative and privilege to guide whomsoever He wills to His light. So that is concept and context right from the start. It is right there into the final revelation. It's not everybody's prerogative to think they can just claim that they have access to that light in any way which they believe and think. Whatever people believe and think, it's fine. That's up to them. And we have no qualms, nor are we there to dispute that. We are simply saying from this perspective. So you put that into context. What is the context? The context here is, it is Maula Bapa himself. It is the Imam of the time himself who is the bearer of this light. It is his light. It belongs to him. And he guides to his nur whom he wills. And of course the ayat also says, he says, Allah doth set forth parables for men, and Allah doth know all things. So he knows all things. He hears all things. He is aware of all things. So this first concept, and this is a treasure. Would anyone deny the last and final revelation that came? And today, more than 1.8, 1.7, whatever the number is, billion people on earth who are Muslims look upon this revelation as a source of guidance. And remember, when we speak about the Quran, what makes it so significant for us? That the Holy Imam, by virtue of the fact he is the bearer of this nur, and remember the connection, making sure that you don't lose the connection, if that is what came down on the night of Laylatul Qadr, and that was the eventual and ultimate purpose, to make known the manifestation of Hazrat Maulana Murtaza Ali and all the Imams to come after him, physically speaking, that they are the bearers of that nur, they are the bearers of that light, then the Imam is the spoken Quran. Hazar Imam is Natikul Quran, Quran and Natik. And the book of the Quran is Quran as Samit, meaning the book that does not speak. It is a silent book. However you conceive the meaning of the book. Remember, in theological terms, in the way the Quran is often being said in that metaphysical sense, the book is not always the book in that literal sense. The book represents also, if you like, the message in that spiritual sense of the term. Therefore, the Imam is the spoken Quran. That's how that validity comes to us. Whatever the Holy Imam says, whatever the Holy Imam guides, howsoever the Holy Imam gives direction, that is from his nur, and that is the speaking Quran, the Quran that speaks. So that is the first notion of this treasure of light, because it is from the Nur. And it is this manifestation. If it is the treasure of light from this Nur, it is rooted in its origin from that creation till today and beyond. By extension of what I've just said, remember the Holy Farman. So this is the second aspect of this treasure. There are many dimensions, so this is number 2. What is Holy Farman of the Imam? You can say it is the holy guidance of the Imam. Yes, of course it is. But Holy Farman of the Imam is Nur made word. Think about the concept of Nur. Always going back to that foundation. It is Nur made words. And when a murid of the Imam reads the Holy Farman of the Imam, it is those words, when they are read and it goes into the intellect and it sinks down into the heart and becomes, if you like, the mold for the soul to be able to follow, because it is guidance from Nur. Then what happens? Those words that are Nur made word, that comes from the Nur of the Holy Imam, it means it becomes a source of illumination from the Nur, from that light, that creates transformation, that leads the believer, the murid, the mu'min, into salvation, into that light. Are you following me? Nur made word, which is Holy Farman, is the source of salvation for the soul. That is the source. That is the source that gives the soul freedom and liberation. Because our beloved Imam has said, in the context of his Farman, December 13th, 1964, I just quote, through the Imam's immense love and affection for his spiritual children, his Nur has indicated to you where and in which direction to turn so as to obtain spiritual and worldly satisfaction, unquote. Can that be more clear? His Nur has indicated. That means, if you think about it, this is a favor from heaven. This is a spiritual favor from Hazar Imam to his murids. I hope you understand the word favor with a capital F and capitalize that word. It's a divine favor. What does that imply? Excuse me. It implies we do not deserve it. We have no rights to it. We cannot take it and demand it. We cannot even imagine it. We cannot even hope to think that you have any kind of claim over it. All of those is 0, 0, 0, 0, and 0, and a bigger 0. Holy Farmans of the Imam to Mu'mins and to Murids in the Jamaat. It's a special divine favor from the Imam to his Murids and his Mu'mins for spiritual guidance. And therefore, this is considered favor from heaven. It is what a murid should, in utmost humility, with utmost gratitude, in prostration, and with total annihilation of self, be grateful to Mawla every single breath that you take, every single moment that you breathe, that you say, Mawla Bapa Hazar Imam, Mawla Bapa Shukr, I am grateful, Mawla Bapa, for your divine guidance. Because had this not been for the holy farmans of the Imam, the soul cannot attain freedom. The soul cannot attain liberation. The soul cannot climb the spiritual realms. It remains stuck in this world because the soul is helpless. The soul cannot find anything. The soul is into the darkness. It's stuck into this mud of the body and this world. In any way the soul can liberate itself, it will be through the farmans of the Holy Imam, the guidance of the Imam. That is why the Holy Farman, as I mentioned, that first of all, it is, like Mawla Bapa himself said, his Noor is indicated to you. So there we are, it's very clear, his Noor. That is the guidance of the Noor. It's a source of illumination from the Noor. It is a source of light from the Noor that creates transformation in the intellect. And it is the source of transformation that leads to salvation into the Noor of Hazar Imam. Therefore, I say to you that when we rely on the holy farmans of the Imam, and when we understand what these farmans are all about, then you begin to realize more and more and more that the holy farmans of the Imam is actually the one and only source of spiritual illumination, intellectual illumination, of spiritual wisdom and freedom, and of safety and security and guarantee. I want to underline the word guarantee. Guarantee of our salvation. I'm taking a little extra time in this concept, my dear brothers and sisters, because everything else will follow in a second is related to that. So if you think about the word guarantee, salvation, freedom of the soul, illumination of the intellect, elevation of the spirit and the soul spiritually, whether it is in your ibadah or in any other way. Fundamental point, the center point, holy farmans of the Imam as a source of spiritual wisdom and guidance and liberation and intellectual illumination. Holy farmans of the Imam brings nur, light into the intellect of the mu'min. And remember, I have said in the past to you, the purpose of the intellect is to be able to remain on the right path, on the path of Sirat al-Mustaqim. But in order for the intellect to do that, it needs illumination. The intellect cannot be into the dark. The intellect needs to remain illuminated. And in the explanation I gave in my last session on the cosmic prism of the intellect, we spoke something about that. So that is the second favor and treasure of this light, holy farmans of the Imam. Now we go into some practical details of tariqah practices. And I'm taking some examples. Holy ginans. So we said Holy Quran in the beginning. We spoke about farmans of the Imam, link that to the Nur. Look at Holy ginans. Now, the session today is not on the ginan in its length, but as a treasure of light. You know, the first thing we realize when you look at our Ghanaic literature composed by the holy peers, composed, that is meaning the knowledge that came from the Ginan. First of all, it's the knowledge that comes from the Nur. It says in the Ginan is full of Nur. How the Ginan comes from the Nur, I will come to that into another lecture, because otherwise we will take a tangent that is too steep to come back to the topic. Holy Ginans are spiritual and metaphysical knowledge and wisdom from the Nur. Let me repeat that. Holy Ginans are spiritual and metaphysical knowledge. Spiritual and metaphysical knowledge and wisdom from the Nur. And our holy peers, given their spiritual position, what do I mean by that? Remember, as I say, I'll come to it in a future lecture. The peers are the bearer of the prophetic light. The Nur of Holy Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam are into the peers. Now, who is the peer today? Mullah Bapa himself is the peer. And he is also the Imam. Meaning, he is the 49th Imam and he is the 50th peer. Do you remember in the the Diamond Jubilee homage, the person who had the privilege when they were making the presentation to our beloved Imam, they said, Hazar Imam, you are our peer and murshid. Mullah Bapa himself is the 49th Imam that everybody knows, but he's the 50th peer. The office of the Imam and the office of the peer today are together. In the past, they would have been separated. The Imam appoints a peer, and at some time, the Imam keeps both of the offices. So right here, I just want to say something. Think about this. When the Imam is holding that office, first is holding the office of the Imam, and I've already said that to you, what that means. But he's also holding the office of the Holy Peer. Why? Imam Sultan Muhammad Shah alayhi salam, at the age of 8 or so, when he came to the holy throne of Imamat, do you remember? He said, "Hey Jamaat, though I'm young in age, do not consider me small. I am exalted. I am the Nur of Ali and the Nur of Muhammad." Please say Salawat. Oh, wait a minute, you might say. We know the Nur of Ali, Imam after Imam, light upon light. But the Nur of Muhammad? Here comes this amazing treasure of light. Nur-e-Imamat and Nur of Nabuwat, they are together. The Nur of Shah and the Nur of Pir. You know when you say, Ya Ali, Ya Muhammad, Shah, Pir, it's the same equation. It's exactly the same, different terminology. So the Nur of Nabuwat, which we spoke about it in the beginning, is the one that is in the Pir. Therefore the Imam says, I'm the 49th Imam and I'm the 50th Pir. And Imam Sultan Muhammad Shah was the 48th Imam and the 49th Pir. The Nur of Ali and Nabi, they come together. And it is through the Nur that our holy peers, out of the love and affection and the grace and blessings of the Imam, although I say grace and blessing, because it is the Imams who have sent these holy peers. It is the Imam who sent the holy peers into their mission. And inshallah, I pray to Mawla that I may have to wisdom and whatever Mawla gives us, that I may be able to convey whatever little I know about. It is amazing that when we discover what our beloved Imam has blessed us with, are you not by any chance somehow curious? Why is it we recite Ginans in Jamaat Khana? We recite Qasidas in Jamaat Khana. We recite Mankabat. We recite these Masnavis in Jamaat Khana and in front of the holy Imams. Why? What is in there? What is in them that we should so amazingly hold precious, like a diamond, like gems? Now today is not the topic of the Ginan, but I have to just add this part so that it connects to the Noor. Do you remember some of the farmans that our beloved Imam made? Even here in Canada in 1978, Hazrat Imam made a farman to the Canadian Jamaat. I would like the traditions of the Ginan to be maintained. And besides that, so many other farmans are there in the United States, in Pakistan, in India, particularly when the Holy Imam has said that this is a unique tradition. Unique. Now, when the Imam says unique, we have to reflect very deeply into our intellect. What's the Imam trying to tell us? And he says, this is a tradition that has to be maintained from generation to generations and generations yet to be born. So I would say to you right there, don't make an excuse to say, we don't understand, that the language is difficult, and we know we make those excuses to say, well, we don't understand Ginan, and yet we sing it in Jamaat Khana. Look, it's true. I mean, it is not a false statement to say that we have to understand the language of the Ginan. We have to understand what is Ginan are saying to us. What is the root? What is the essence into this Ginan? And so on and so forth. But the very fact we are reciting the Ginan in Jamaat Khana, the very fact it is the expectation of our beloved Imam that we should maintain and preserve these traditions for generations to come and generations yet to be born. It means that the Imam has a very high and deep expectation where we should go with it. I always say with utmost humility and love to the people who actually recite the Ginans and the Qasidas, you know, how blessed they are, how blessed they are that they're able to recite this amazingly spiritual wisdom. You know, the word Ginan, from one of its root, it means spiritual, metaphysical knowledge. Knowledge that leads the soul to liberation is the kind of knowledge that when you consume and you understand and it sinks into the heart, just like the farmans, they create spiritual elevation and liberation. So people who have the blessing to sing this Ginan, they are blessed. They are blessed to the infinite degree because this is the knowledge. It's knowledge. Ginan are not just songs. Ginans are not just devotional literature, though they are. Ginan is devotion. Ginan is not just musical and singing, rendering, and this and that, though it is that way. But in addition and in wholeness to all of that, it is spiritual knowledge. It is metaphysical knowledge. It is divine wisdom. And Ginan is knowledge of the soul that gives the soul liberation from this world. It is knowledge given to us to be put into practice so we understand the inner essence of our tariqah connected to the Noor. That's why Ginan comes from that source, the Noor. So, to the next step now, As I've said, Gnana, spiritual, metaphysical knowledge, and wisdom from Nur. How about Jamaat Khana? Jamaat Khana is the house of Nur. It is the house, it is the point, physically speaking, where the murid can go and experience that Nur of Maula Baba. The Imam has made himself manifest in the form of his Nur in Jamaat Khana. The Imam is present in Jamaat Khana 24/7. If we are blessed to understand the meaning of Jamaat Khana, you will be blessed to know what a great blessing it is that our beloved Imam has favored his Mu'mins, is favored to the faithful and the believers with Jamaat Khana. Jamaat Khana is the house of Nur. It's the house of Hazar Imam. And when we go to Jamaat Khana, it is an invitation. It is Maula Bapa who is inviting us to come to his house. Who would refuse? Who would say anything to not go into that sacred and holy place? Jamaat Khana is the place of manifestation of the holy Nur of the Imam. And we go into that house, we go into that place of Jamaat Khana to experience and practice our tariqah practices. So, once again, I come back to the original point. Connect it with Nur. Don't say Jamaat Khana is this and is that. It's like a church or it's like this or a masjid. No, it's Jamaat Khana. Every place of worship have their identity. We deeply respect them all. It's part of our faith to respect them. But we have our own identity in the place where we offer our devotion and love and worship to our beloved Imam. And that is Jamaat Khana. And it is exclusive to the ones whom the Imam invites into that house. This is not an open house that anybody can walk in at any time. It's the house that belongs to the Imam of the time. And he decides whom he wants to invite into that house for worship, devotion, love, and practice. And that house is built for his faithful, the Mu'mins. So today, the Imam is given direction, how we should ourselves behave versus Jamaat Khana and take into consideration the times in which we live and how others should look upon it. I won't go into details, but I think you understand. And if you remember some of the latest guidance our beloved Imam has given. So, Jamaat Khana is the place of the manifestation of the Nur. Now, I have mentioned to you the Surah Nur, where it says, Allah is the light of the heavens and the earth. Allah doth guides to his light whom he will. Allah doth guide to his light whom he will. What is that light? I don't have the verse here, but so that was Surah number 24, ayat 35, 24-35. But verse 36 of the Quran, and I'm just paraphrasing because I don't have it in front of me. It says, this light, now remember this is 35, Allah is the light of the heavens and the earth. Allah guides to his light whom he wills. This light is manifest in houses which Allah has allowed. What is that house? Though that house, those houses, are the houses of the prophets of God, according to one hadith, and the house of the Panchtan Pak, meaning Panchtan Pak means Noor of Imam, Noor of Hazrat Ali, Hazrat Maulana Murtaza Ali alayhi salam, Hazrat Maulana Nabi Muhammad Mustafa Rasul sallallahu alayhi wasallam, Hazrat Bibi Fatima Zahra alayhi salam, Hazrat Imam Hussain, Hazrat Imam Hassan alayhi salam. The 5 names of the Noor, Panchtan Pak. It is the house of the Panchtan Pak, where the Noor is manifest. Anyone just go there? Can anyone simply decide that I just want to be there? No. You require the permission from the bearer of the Noor. It is his house, where he has allowed his light to manifest there. And when we enter Jamaat Khana, I'm not going into the details of Tariqah practices today, but I'm giving you the link to the Noor. Remember, today's talk is related to the spiritual treasures of light and favors from heaven. When we enter Jamaat Khana, we say, good Jamaat hai zinda. The reply is given, Kayam Paya. Why do you say, good Jamaat hai zinda? People say it many different ways. They say, good Jamaat hai zinda, good Jamaat hai zinda, good Jamaat hai zinda. It's all right. The point of all of this is this. What is the essence of that? The essence of that is Hayyu Zinda, Hey Zinda. The Imam is present and living. Living and present. What does that mean? Present, you know, that means he is here. He is in Jamaat Khana by all means, may have no doubt. He is spiritually present. But living, yes. Living means, as our beloved Imam has expressed in the parliamentary speech he did in Canada, and where he said, we are the only sect in Islam, the only branch, I should say, where we have a living manifest Imam. A living Imam. He is living. The Imam is manifest. You can see him, you can relate to him, you can observe him, you can hear him, he can hear you, he can see you, and all of he is living. Now, I'm emphasizing that because, as you know, there are other theologies related to this, which I am not going into, but he is living and manifest. And this line and lineage of Imamat is to be not only until the day of resurrection and judgment, till the end of time, but even beyond that. So think about this. God Gat Jamaat Hazanda. You are testifying that you are in the house of Noor, the house of light. And you are first of all expressing the Noor is manifest into this sacred space of Jamaat Khana. And the bearer of this Noor is a living, manifest being, not somebody who is invisible. And the reply comes, Kayam Paya. We have him eternally. He is eternally present. He is the source of eternity. And then what happens? When you think about Jamaat Khana, as you enter, as you have proclaimed your faith, your iman, about who the Imam is and where he is, and the reply has been given to you. You proceed into this sacred space of Jumat Khana. It is full of nur. And what are you going to do there? What are you going to do in this space where the holy nur is present and manifest? And when you are in front of that nur, will you be doing things that are related to the Sharia, or will you be doing things that are related to the Hakikat and Marifat? If the Ismaili Tariqah is rooted into the Hakikat, that is the ultimate eternal reality and truth, then the things that you will do inside that house has to be related to the ultimate absolute reality, to that truth, to that hakikat. Why? Because it is taking you to become one with the ultimate being, the Imam himself. That is the purpose of our worship. That is the purpose of our love, our devotion, our prostration, our love, our compassion, our love for the holy Imam of the time. Let me emphasize this now, lest I forget. Everything we do in our tariqah practice, which is related to the holy nur of the Imam, it is done out of love, out of devotion, out of affection. Love does not exclude the intellect. If not today, at some point I will show you the connection, in my humble opinion. Love does not exclude the intellect. You know this notion you often hear in the Ginan, say ishq and akal. Ishq and akal. Ishq, love, devotion, compassion, submission, frustration, unconditionally, and akal, intellect, they come together. In fact, sometimes symbolically, the clasping of the hands or the separation of our hands into this posture whereby the Holy Prophet has often said that when you pray and you pray with your hands in this particular posture, you open your palms upwards. It is the posture of an individual that is standing in front of his Creator as a beggar, just like a beggar would beg for food when he's really thirsty and hungry. You are thirsty for the love, mercy, and grace of your Creator, the Holy Imam. We stand in front of him with absolute humility, dedication, love, and affection. Everything we do into the Ismaili practice has to do with love. It's not compulsion, it's not coercion, it's not obligation, it's not a burden, it's not anything but love. Do it out of love. Worship out of love. Pray out of love. Say your tasbih out of love. Express your love and devotion for the Holy Imam out of love. When you submit the song, when you return the amanat, the return of amanat, putting the dasand in the Imam's hand, is an act of supreme love. The only proof of that love. I think I made that clear in my earlier presentation. So, here we are in relation to the aspect of Jumat Khana. So far, I've said something about the Quran being the source of light and Imam is the spoken Quran. I've said something about Holy Farman to be the source of salvation because it is light, nur made words. I've said something about the Holy Ginans and I mentioned the concept of Jumat Khana. I'm only recapping right now. Simply that you may not lose track. All these are connected with the Noor, as you can see. I hope that you can. Now, we go to the fifth treasure. These numbers are not in any way, it's only numerical because I'm telling you what they are by numbers, but the fifth aspect is Baitul Khiyal. What's Baitul Khiyal? Now look, I'm sure you will agree with me. This is not a platform that we discuss such matters because you understand it is a directive from our beloved Imam. We do not discuss Baitul Khiyal matters into public domain and public platform because for the simple reason, as Maulana Bapa has said, it's an individual matter. It's an individual matter. So perhaps in some other context, we may speak about the wisdom in Baitul Khiyal, generally speaking, but we cannot do that in this platform. But simply to say, because we are speaking about favors from heaven, treasures of light, spiritual treasures of light. But nonetheless, I should mention it, otherwise it will remain incomplete. Baitul Khiyal is the path that Imam has opened for the soul of the murid to search, and under the guidance of the path that the Imam has opened, under the holy guidance of the Imam, the believer, the faithful, the mu'min, the murid has the opportunity under the guidance of the Imam to return into the light. Inna lillahi wa inna ilayhi raji'un. He from whom we have come, to whom we will return. How will you return? Do you know the path? Do you know the road? Do you know which way to turn? Do you know how vast the spiritual realm is? You know your way around there? I can't answer for you. You can answer for yourself. But simply to say, just like Jalaluddin Rumi has said, he who travels without a guide will take 200 years for a 2-day journey. You want to get home? You want to go home in 2 days? Then follow the guidance of the Imam. Strictly in spiritual matters or in whatever other matters the Imam has guided, follow the guidance and the direction and the way the Imam has shown that path. It's the path of the soul. For us, that is the road. That is the path. So if you want to get home in 2 days, follow what the Imam has said. Because in that path, all the obstacles are removed. In that path, the path that Imam has given, the path that Imam has opened, is the path of light. It is the path of Noor. And when you walk in that path, there is nothing but Noor that comes to you. Our Baitul Khiyal is the path of Noor, the path of light that the Imam has favored. Imam has favored the believers to walk on so that he from whom we have come, to whom we will return. And we will return with Maulana Bapa's grace and blessing and mercy and favor back into his Noor. Because our beloved Imams have said to us that after death, there should not be any separation between the nur of the Imam and the soul of the Mu'min. That is our part of Baitul Khiyal. Again, I'm not going into those details, but simply saying to you that is our path, is the path of the return to the light, nur. The next thing is that concept which I have already expressed before, and I think I expressed it very strongly in my earlier lecture on the cosmic prism, where I spoke about amanat and I spoke about the song. But in favor of completeness, in making sure that I am remaining complete into my presentation, I have to just repeat the key points. Okay. So now we are speaking about the nur. We are speaking about our connection and our practice related, and that everything we do is connected to that nur. And I hope that you can reframe, reconceptualize in your mind and in your thinking and in your thoughts. Our link with Mawla is nur, meaning him. He is the nur. Whether you look at him physically or whether you look at with him spiritually, he is nur. In totality, in entirety. So now, then you might say, well, the song. Yes. What is the song? In the simplest sense and in this connection, the song is that which keeps you attached or tied to the nur. Let me put it to you first of all a little simply. And that is, any murid, mu'min, faithful believer in our tariqah, they say, when they say that Hazar Imam, they said, Mola Bapa, you are my sustainer, you are my maintainer, you are my creator, you are the one who will take me to the path of salvation. You are the one who sustains me physically in this world. Every breath I take is your grace, is your mercy, is your love, is your compassion. When I am protected from calamities, from difficulties, it is from you. It is your holy hand, Mawla, Lord, that you have placed on my shoulder that guides me and protects me. Mawla, I cannot live without you. Mawla, I cannot breathe without you. Mawla, my life is meaningless without you. Mawla, you and you alone are everything to me. There is no other being in this whole cosmos, spiritual or material, that is beyond and above you. You are it. Those who are of these expressions that I have mentioned are the ones who says to Mawla, Mawla, here is the sound that belonged to you. It was only in my hand as a safekeeping, as a trust. And I'm returning this thing to you. And Mawla, I have to do that because that was the agreement I made with you in the pre-eternal time. In the time before creation. That I made this covenant. I made this agreement. And I made this agreement in the womb of my mother before I was born into this world. And the agreement I made in the womb of my mother with you, Mawla, I made this promise to you in the womb of my mother. I said, Mawla, when I am born into this world, I promise you, I will submit my dasam. Now remember, I'm very careful. I'm not saying the word give. We cannot give anything. It's not for you or me or anyone else to give. We are not giving anything. That belongs to him to begin with. It's only safekeeping. It's an amanah. It's a trust. So give it back to the owner. So I am only returning what you kept in trust with me. That's my dason. So Mola Bapa, I will return my dason back to you. I will follow your farmans, and I will not slander anyone. Meaning, I will not backbite, I will not speak ill of anyone, I will not speak behind somebody's back, and all of those negative things. Imagine how serious that is. That's the promise we made in the womb of our mother and in pre-eternal time. And the Son is the foundation of all religions, including ours. So, the Son is what keeps the human intellect linked to the divine intellect. Remember this. Is that which keeps the human intellect connected with the human intellect. And through the divine principle of the song, making possible, remember this, is through the divine principle of the song, which makes possible the flow of grace which illuminates the human intellect. Such is the blessings of the song. This is not simply what people think, a monetary issue. Yeah, of course it is, because this is the world in which we live. And you have to understand the forms. Remember what I said before? Forms in the past were different, but the essence has always been there. The form of today is monetary, but the essence has not changed. So, the song makes possible the flow of grace, which illuminates the human intellect. And this illumination of the intellect becomes the basis of the cosmic rapport, the cosmic connection. Cosmic connection and harmony is the rapport of this connection and harmony of human life. How? With the rhythms of nature, which creates and brings barakat, blessings. How? Spiritually and materially. It brings blessings in the human and spiritual sphere of existence. Such is the power of the soul. And it is so amazing. Those who do it, they can tell you. But let me just add this, that why is it important that we remember this? Because without this, remember that whole pyramid collapses. And it is through the principle of the song that the whole creation, the whole created order remains in equilibrium. The whole cosmos is in equilibrium, is in balance because of the song. So, if you are able to extend your understanding to this level about what the song is, and there is much more to it, then you will come to understand if the whole cosmic order, spiritual and material, has emanated from the Nur, then the song is the connection that keeps it stable, and the song is the one that brings illumination to the human soul and intellect and connects it to the divine intellect, which is the Nur of Hazrat Imam Peace be upon him. So the song is the one that keeps us attached. And as I said, those who need the Imam know exactly, and they say, we need our Mawla to take it. But fulfill your bargain, your part of it. Our part is to return the Amanat into the hands of God. And then, whatever he does, it will be his part, by his covenant. Do you remember? Will you remember if I tell you? And this is a fundamental principle of our faith, and we must exercise our akal, our intellect, our reason, our thinking, our analysis. How? By reminding ourselves this much. We have the fortune and the blessing to have Hazrat Imam with us, and the link and the root of that fortune and that blessing that the Imam is with us is the sound. And when that is, God forbid, when that is not there, there is a rupture. It disconnects. It may sound strange for some people, but that is the hakikat. And because time is running so far, I will switch to immediately the next part of it. But remember what I said before and now, this is a foundation. Now remember, in the context of our subject this evening, meaning spiritual treasures of light and favors from heaven. Without the sun, there is no nur. There is no light. In fact, there is darkness. And that is testified in the Quran, in the Hadith, in other faiths, in holy farmans of the Imam, in the Ginans, and many other places. If you look at scripture, generally speaking, it is there. So foundational is this aspect. So if your business of religious practice, worship, and salvation has to do with salvation in order to arrive to the state and level of nur, make sure and understand clearly that the sound is the path and route that takes the soul to salvation. Without that, it's cut off. The bridge is broken. There is no way to cross without it. Now, there are extended explanations to that, but I will leave that for another time. If there is some request to speak more deeply about the song, then inshallah, with Mawla's blessing, I will try to do that. Now, dua, our holy dua. Holy dua that we recite 3 times a day. What is that? You might say that's our dua, that's our prayers. Like others have their namaz, others have their form of prayers in some shape or form. This is our holy dua. Now ask yourself, where is this dua come from? You know it. Dua has come from the holy Imam. It is the Imam who prescribes the dua, the prayer. And the Jamaat follows the dua given by the Imam. So first and foremost, holy dua is prayer that comes from light. It is a prayer from the light, from nur. I'll explain in a second. This is, again, when you look at it, it's a favor from heaven. How is this a favor? You know, sometimes people may say, I'm not saying that people are saying that, but I say sometimes people may say, oh, we have to recite 3 du'as a day. Or we don't have time to recite the dua. Even the dua takes less than 5 minutes to say it. Have you ever explored what is inside the dua? The power of this dua. And why? Why? Why is it a prayer from light? Now, without going into too many elaboration, which I would love to do, and I think I've done that in some of my lectures, but just to say to you this. Imagine in your mind, Mola Bapa says, here is your prayer. I'm giving you this prayer that you recite this prayer 3 times a day. This prayer that Mawla gives from his nur That's why it's a prayer of light. And when we recite this prayer, when you recite our dua early morning and the two duas in the evening, our three dua that we recite, remember, it is flooded, it is loaded with nur. Why? Because it is the divine will. Remember I mentioned in the beginning, the will and authority of the Imam is inside this dua. And why is that important? Because a prayer is intended to create a miracle in the reciter's life, spiritually and materially. Dua is a prayer that opens up the path of miracle. When I will have an opportunity later down, whenever, to say something about the notion of prayer in our tariq, including tasbihs and other spiritual renderings, it will become abundantly clear. This dua is supercharged with the blessings of the Imam in it. Imagine that. And when you recite a prayer that is charged with the blessing, guess what happens? That special power that exists in the prayer, that is supercharged with the blessing, those blessings discharges itself in the human being. It discharges itself. And therefore, when you say that prayer, when you say that dua, with understanding, with love, with faith, and you understand what is in the dua can make miracle for you. And you know what dua does? Let me just tell you one or two things. When you recite prayer, when we say dua, and I'm being very specific and I'm qualifying my statement, not just any dua. Those prayers and those tasbihs and the dua that is blessed and given by the Imam, you are able to bring heaven and earth together. You connect heaven and earth. It's only through prayer you can do that. A human being cannot demand anything out of heaven and create that connection out of heaven just like that. You require divine help, divine grace, divine mercy. You require divine assistance. And that comes from the nur of Hazrat Imam through the dua. And if you understand the meaning of the dua, what will come to you as a point of connection? In the dua, in the sixth part, we are mentioning the names of 49 Imams. And before that, we are mentioning the name of the Holy Panchtan Pak. Right? So think of the relationship in the dua. The nur of Panchtan Pak is there. When you say, Allahumma bihaqqi Muhammadin al-Mustafa walini al-Murtaza wa Fatimati Zahra wal Hassani wal Hussein. And then we begin the names of the holy Imams. And these names are the names of the ultimate realities. What does it tell you? One Imam after the other. As the Quran and Surah Nur says, light upon light, light upon light, one light after the other light. So, here again, the connection. When you are saying the names of all the Imams, when you are saying the name of the Prophet in the dua, when you are mentioning the name of the holy Imam and holy Imams in the dua, is this not connection with light? So here I have to say, of course, with always utmost humility, I say, are you connecting with the light then? Or is it a mechanical rendering? Are you mechanically just saying the dua? Connect. Connect yourself with Maula Bapa himself. Connect your heart, your mind, your thoughts with Hazar Imam during dua. That's the connection with Noor. Don't let your mind frivolously wander anywhere for those 5 minutes. Make the connection with Maula Bapa first, in your heart, in your mind, in your thoughts. Make the connection, then say your dua. The reason we close our eyes is to prevent other distraction coming in that may suddenly trigger, consciously or subconsciously, thoughts that we don't want during the process of our dua. So dua is a prayer of Noor, coming from the Noor, in reference to the Noor, in reference to the bearers of the Noor. That is our true dua. Now I must add by extension all other prayers that Maula Bapa has given us. The tasbihs that Maula Bapa has given us. And I'm being very specific. The tasbihs that we relate to in our tariqah, in our practice. Those tasbihs that the Imam have given us. I'm being very specific because there is a specific significance to them. Now, I'm not saying to you what you should be doing. I'm simply elaborating and clarifying the purpose in our practice related to the Noor. And that is, those tasbihs the Imam had given us. Now remember, who has given it to us? The bearer of the Noor. Allah is the Noor of the heavens and the earth. He has given us. And he says, in Baitul Kyal, recite this tasbih. In Chandrat, recite this tasbih. In Laylatul Qadr, you recite this tasbih. Whatever tasbih the Imam is given, it is complete in itself. Nothing is missing. And those tasbih, because it is coming from the Imam, it is blessed with his Noor. It is blessed by him. And it is the power, the authority of his blessing that brings Noor into the reciter. That brings result into the reciter. And how these tasbihs are recited and so forth. Remember, this is the grace of the Imam. And always bear in mind and ask yourself, am I following the farmans of the Imam? Because remember, that's the key for everything. Now, let me move forward very quickly. One more point I should still mention in relation to tasbihs and names, like the names of our dua, or the names of the Imams in our dua. And remember, in some of the holy farmans, Maula Bapa said to us, call on the tasbih. What an amazing word, eh? Call. Who are you calling? Take your cell phone and call. Your spiritual cell phone is your tasbih. Call on the tasbih. Keep a tasbih with you, Maula Bapa says. And call on the tasbih. You know, in one place he says, when you need support, when you need courage, when you need wisdom, when you need enlightenment in the issues that you are facing every day, call on the tasbih. Who's saying that to you? He who is the bearer of the Noor, he who is the Noor is telling you, call me. And he says, call the name of Allah. Call the name or call the name of the Imams or the name of the Imam of the time. Wow. What's in the name of the Imam of the time? Let me tell you. The holy name of the Imam of the time is a blessed and sacred name. In this one name, the name of the holy Imam, all the attributes of God, all of them. Now, I know people say there are 99, but trust me, if you read the Quran properly, you will find there are more than 500, maybe even more. In fact, he has infinite names. That's what some spiritual scriptures are saying. But let's say, however you look at it, doesn't matter. In the name of the Imam of the time is encompassed every single attribute of God. In this one name, all the names are encompassed. You don't have to go searching this name, that name, that name. No, no need to search that. In the name of the Imam, and let me say to you this, based on the teachings of our Imam, there is no higher form of worship or prayer or ibadah than the continuously remembering and repeating the name of the Imam of the time. Please say Salam. There's no higher form. So in that one name of the Imam, all the divine attributes of God are encompassed in them. In it. One name. So you can say Ya Ali, Ya Shakarim, same thing. You can take either of them. And in the name of Mullah Murtaza Ali, in the name of the holy Imam of the time, who is Murtaza Ali, all the divine attributes of Allah, the Creator, is encompassed. Nothing is missing. That is the inner meaning of our tariqah and prayer when we are saying our prayers. Now let me move forward. As I said, I'm giving you snapshots tonight because each one of them can be an extended talk if you wanted to, but at least some understanding is there. So the next thing, the ceremony of Holy Gatpat. What is that? If you really want to study Gatpat, the ceremony, the sacred and holy ceremony of Gatpat in Jamaat Khana, then we will have to study the old Gatpat dua given to us by Holy Pir Sadodi, by the authority of the Imam, that we recited for many, many centuries, and what the dua, what the Gatpat dua is. And what is the Holy Gatpat dua? Well, I can only tell you in a few words because I think I'm exceeding my time right now, but I'm almost coming to some conclusion with this part. Holy Gatpat, the Gatpat ceremony that we have in Jamaat Khana, morning and in auspicious days. This ceremony of Gatpat is a cosmological symbol of creation and termination, if you like, meaning creation to end. How creation came into being, how it will end, and it is a cosmological symbol of for the salvation of the soul. So, for example, the whole Gatpat ceremony, we call it the ceremony of light. Remember, Mullah Bapa said, your customs, your ceremonies and customs. This is a ceremony. Call it a ceremony. Why is it a ceremony? Because it is ceremonious. In a ceremony, it can be jubilant. It could be a ceremony that brings all kinds of happiness, and it is. And all kinds of things happens into a ceremony that needs to be understood and explained. But in one word, if I may, for tonight, simply say to you, who do you think establishes the Gatpat? Think about it very logically. It is in Jamaat Khana, by the authority of the Mukhi, who says, Gatpat Sthapna Alamariya. In other words, the amra, the divine command of the imam given to the mukhi of the jamaat. When I say mukhi, I'm referring to mukhi kamari sahib, mukhiani kamari sahib is a collective thing. But mukhi sahib is the amra. Excuse me. And mukhi sahibs give the command. Gatpat sthapna alamariya, meaning establish the gatpat. Bring gatpat into establishment. What is that? Why can't the person, when it comes to Khane, just not open up the gatpat and put all the utensils there and basically said, okay, gatpat. Why do we need this ceremony to do everything? Because this command of gatpat sthapna ala Maria, it was the same divine command that was given to Holy Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam in pre-eternal time. Please remember my words. Given to the Nur of Prophet Muhammad before the creation of the world to establish the spiritual gatpat in heaven. You may not have heard of this thing, but it is there. And this divine command that has been given is the holy and divine command of the Imam. Remember this. It is established by the Amra, the divine spiritual command of the Imam, that Gatpat should be established. And when Gatpat is established, who do you think sits behind this Gatpat? Do you know who sits behind the Gatpat? Meaning, there is the place where Niyaz is generated, and there is the place where Sukri is distributed. In the place where there is Niyaz, it is the holy Imam, it is Maula Bappa himself who comes into the Gatpat and sits behind there. And where there is Sukri, it is Holy Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam who comes and sits there. Now don't be surprised about this thing, because I will, if Mola wills, Mola's blessings, I will have the opportunity when the time comes to be able to share more of this thing. But I'm just giving you the connection. Why Holy Gatpat is the ceremony of light, of Nur. And through that ceremony, the believers attain purification and salvation. So, if you are following my trend of thought, then you can see, where did the ceremony of Gatpat come? Heaven. Where was it first established? In heaven. Then it came on earth. And our peers brought this treasure from the highest of the celestial heavens and brought it down and gave it to the believers. Now don't just think of the Gatpat ceremony in that limited form. Gatpat ceremony also used to take place during the time of the Holy Prophet. We have proof and evidence. Niyaz was being generated. The Holy Prophet distributed Niyaz to the believers. And we have followed the tradition from there. Remember, the Holy Prophet is Nur Nabuwat. Remember, the peers are Nur Nabuwat. And we will come to that at some point. So, that is the ceremony of Holy Gatpat. It's a ceremony of light. It brings purification and salvation to the soul. Then we have Niyaz itself, which is purification from that light. So when we drink Niyaz, it is Abe Safa, the water of purity, Abe Safa. There are many names that are given to this holy water that we call Niyaz. Niyaz is one of them. Abe Safa is another one of them. Nirmal Noor. See, the word Noor is there. Nirmal Noor is also another name given to Abe Safa. Towel is another name given to Abe Safa. There are several names given like that to emphasize that this divine nectar, this divine water, what is Nur? Sorry, what is this Abe Safa? It is Nur. Nur made water, if you like. Nur made water. And we, with respect and humility and understanding, we sip in gratitude this Nur. And in doing so, if we understand what it is, it brings us Nur in us. It purifies us. Body, mind, and spirit, our whole being. Now, the next thing. I've already said things about Baitul Khiyal, but I want to say just a quick word about Baitul Khiyal, Isme Azam, and practice. Just one word. This notion of Baitul Khiyal, as I mentioned, related to Isme Azam. Isme Azam means the supreme name. Isme Azam, supreme name. It is the secret. It's a secret of the Imam that it gives to the believers with whom he has opened the path of spiritual enlightenment and salvation. Is that connected with Nur? Well, of course it is. Otherwise, what else would it be? Because it is intended for spiritual enlightenment, spiritual elevation, and eventually for us to be admitted by Mawla's mercy and grace unto his Nur. So whatever Imam gives at that time, it is his Nur. Isme Azam means Nur. The ball means Nur. It's a connection with Nur. That's why in one of the Farman, Hazrat Imam has reminded the Jamaat, when you sit in Bangi, he said, do not sit in Bangi in any other context except light. Remember this. Do not sit in Bangi in any other context except light. So having said that, we can see the connection. Enough for that. What about the soul then? What's its connection? Well, the soul is divine luminous substance from that Nur. Divine luminous substance from that Nur. You might say it is what was created from that Nur and given physical form here on earth. And it is that part of the human being, because of the Nur in it, it is eternal. And I am always keen to remind people this particular verse of the Quran that says, Al-Ruh Amra Rabbi, meaning the soul is by the command of God. The soul is by the command of Hazrat Imam. You cannot command your soul. No human being can. You did not put that soul in you. It came to you in the womb of your mother. And you cannot take that soul out without his intervention. Except when the soul has to exit and you then continue your spiritual path, then it comes out at that time because of the end of your life. But you have no control. No one has control. Because it says, Al-Ruh Amra Rabbi, the soul is by the command of my Lord. He commands the soul. What about Holy Didar of the Imam? Holy Didar of the Imam is the physical connection with the Nur of the Imam when it is physically manifest. It is a divine vision of light. When Mawla Bapa comes to give Didar, it is Zahiri Didar. And Mawla Bapa comes as a manifest Nur. He is the Nur manifest. You can see him, you can relate to him, you can physically relate to him, you can spiritually relate to him if you can, but he's there physically. And it's called Zahiri Didar. And then, in Bangi, of course, you know, it is Batini Didar. Batini means it is the Didar of his Nur. This is the Didar of the Nur manifest physically. So that is Zahiri Didar. Again, the subject can be taken separately, but it is important just for you to know the connection. Hazar Imam is the one who shows us the path of light, as I mentioned many times in the last few minutes. And that is the connection of the Zahiri Didar. That Imam comes, he gives us his holy farmans, he gives Hidayah, he opens up the path of Noor, and he tells us, according to the time, according to the circumstances, how to tread on that path, how to move on that path, and the security and the blessing that the Imam gives us for our material and spiritual well-being. Then, a further aspect of this didar is when the murid is able to relate to the fact that, which again I've mentioned before, that when the murid goes that step further in his ibadat, ibadat is also the basis of bringing that illumination into the soul. Again, the connection, the thread that runs all along is Noor. Now, if that has been the case all along, I think I'm going to kind of stop in a few minutes. Before I give the conclusion, I just want to mention this thing. Look, I mentioned Hazendarkai Empire, but before that, it's not a ceremony, but nonetheless, it's something that we do. We remove our shoes before entering Jamaat Khana. The removal of our shoes is not just a hygienic reason. There are other reasons. There are spiritual reasons. I'm just mentioning a few things. Then we proceed for Dua Karawi. And in the Dua Karawi, it's a specific ceremony that takes place. Then we sit down and participate in Ginans. I've said something about it, whether they are Ginans or our lovely Qasidas, Mankabats, Masnavis, depending where we are. Then we participate in the upstanding tasbihs. And that in itself, it's an amazing prayer, what it is. Then we sit down and again we may recite Qasidas or we may recite Ginans or there will be certain renderings. Then we read Farmans in Jamaat. Then we will say our second dua. Forgot to mention the first one. And then there is Gatpat ceremony. On auspicious day, there are other ceremonies like Awal Sufro and so on. And then there is the ceremony of Nandi. And then there are those various prayers by Mukhi Kamari Asai, Mukyani Kamari Saibas. Now, none of these I've touched yet. But all of these and everything that is there, all these ceremonies are connected with the Noor. So I would like to simply, in all humility and with respect to everyone, to say when you understand, if you are understanding the trend and the concept that I'm bringing to you this evening, is simply to say that if Jamaat Khana is the house of Noor and the Noor is manifest in Jamaat Khana, then all the practices that we do that are connected to the Noor, first of all, they are treasures and favors from heaven. None of these have been fabricated by human beings. This has come from the divine realm to the human being, meaning to us, in our tariqah, in our Jamaat. And when we practice them in accordance with the guidance of the Imam of the time, they are there to bring illumination to our intellect and elevation spiritually to our soul. All our tariqah practices are rooted in that Noor in that way. There is no exception. So I would like to rest my case here. The whole concept of spiritual treasures and divine and heavenly favors is based on the totality of His grace and mercy that Hazar Imam has given us in our tariqah. And we should at every moment never to think that it's simply a mechanical thing or a physical thing. It's connected with the Nur. Make the connection with the Nur in all our practices, in all our ceremonies, in all our practice of our faith. That today is my humble submission, and I'm certain there are questions. Now, I'm happy to hang around for a few minutes, and I know in certain areas it's exceedingly late, but at least those in the local areas, if you have any really burning question, I'm happy to take some just for a few minutes. And then in future session, we will actually take a Q&A session with questions that you have raised and bring them, and hopefully we can, I will try my best to answer them.
Dr. H, in the chat, somebody is asking if they can establish gut part at home since they cannot be in Khane in these times.
No. You cannot simply establish gut part at home like that because it requires the amra of Mukhi Kamariya Sahib, Mukhani Kamariya Sahibas to do so. And because it is a holy and sacred ceremony, and based on the practices of our tariqah, this amra has to come from the authorities whom the imams have bestowed, and for good reason. But that does not mean that you cannot drink niyaz at home under the circumstance. But niyaz normally is partaken in Jumat Khana in the morning and in the evening in those auspicious days. And under the circumstance when, because of the conditions that we are now, and we don't have access to Jumat Khana, most certainly one can drink niyaz at home.
And also they're qualifying it even if they are a mukhi, they cannot do it at home?
Yes.
They're asking if we say our tasbihs at home and have intention of gut part, then it's accepted?
Well, when you say intention, you have to be clear that what do you mean. Like, if you're drinking niyaz at home, obviously I would hope that expresses your intention to have got it from gut part. But you know what? Here's the thing. Any murid, every murid, in their prayers to Mawla, can sincerely beseech and supplicate to Mawla and said, Mawla, the fact that we don't have Jamaat Khana, we cannot have Gut Part ceremony and participate in Gut Part, will you today accept my intention for Gut Part? You can do that in your prayers.
And there is a question, maybe for another time, is to explain Nade Ali.
Yes. Nade Ali is an amazingly miraculous prayer, but it is a prayer that removes worry, anxiety. It's a prayer that brings protection of Hazrat Ali. It is a prayer that is very historic, and I can take that up perhaps in detail, because I think that is what is required in one of my next sessions, especially when we have the Q&A session. But you can say Nade Ali, or you can simply say the prayer of Ya Ali. It is the same. Any other specific question for tonight?
Somebody wants a list of the Ginans explaining Gut Part ceremony, and maybe that also for another time then?
A list of the Ginan?
That explain the Gut Part ceremony.
Yes. As I said, the best one, first of all, is the old Gut Part Dua. And then there are many Gut Part, there are many Ginans. For example, the Ginans that we recite are called Gut Part Na Ubha Ginan, meaning Ginan that we recite when Gut Part is actually on, and Gut Part Na Betha Ginan, meaning those Ginan that we recite while we are sitting down, but they are Gut Part Ginan. Yes, I will compose and produce a list of some of the Ginans. Some Ginan just mention it, other Ginans are completely dedicated to the explanation of the Holy God part. One Ginan is God part Mandavi ne chok puravu. It needs to be explained, but there are many others. I mean, maybe one other that comes to mind right away is Pela Karta Jugamaye Sonana Ghat Sonana Part, that Ginan. So Ghat Part Ginan.
It is a question on the son. If we are given money by our parents for personal use, are we to submit the son from this?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear the question.
If we are given money by our parents for personal use, are we to submit the son from this?
If you are given money by your parents for personal use, if you are an independent adult, and let us say you are independent in the sense that you are adult and independently earning also, and you receive money from your parents, yes, you have to submit your dasan because in a way it is a source of income. The exception is when there are underage children who are living under the same roof and they have been given pocket money, if you like, or money for their personal use as a training. Now, if parents have already submitted the son, they don't have to. But as a training, the parents often train their children to say, here is your allowance of pocket money or whatever, but here is, and make sure that you submit your dasan.
Yeah, there's another question if you can differentiate between Batini Didar versus Nurani Didar.
Batini Didar is what we seek for in our Baitul Kyal practice. Zahiri Didar is when our beloved Imam, out of his grace and mercy and compassion for us and our soul, comes to a Jamaat and gives us his Didar because of what we need in our material and also spiritual life.
So the question was Batini versus Nurani, not Zahiri.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Batini and Nurani, yeah.
I didn't hear the word Nurani. So Batini refers to the esoteric, meaning the one that is the inner meaning of the Zahiri. But when we say Nurani, it refers to Nur. In other words, Batin actually goes and refers to the point of contact as Nur. Therefore, in many prayers, sometimes people say Batini Nurani Didar. Nurani Didar, the Didar of the Nur, can be Batin, can be Zahir. Does it make it clear?
Thank you.
Yeah. Okay, so I see you have somebody's given you on the chat already dua. May Mola accept all your seva and may He give us the summary. Yeah, you're getting some really good.
And to you all, may Mola bless you with the fulfillment of all your wishes.
Amen.
May Mola bless you with safety. Mola bless you with strength and courage. Mola bless you with mushkil asan. May Mola's hand be upon you to guide you, to protect you, to keep you safe. Whatever your wishes are, spiritually and materially, may Mola Bapa accept them and fulfill them. And whatever your desires are for your spiritual life, for your material life, may all of those be fulfilled with Mola's grace and mercy. And Mola bless you with Zahiri and Nurani Dida. Amin. I wish Yali Madad to everyone. Yes. And inshallah, we will see you next Tuesday if Mola wills. Thank you.
Inshallah.
Yali Madad. Knowledge we're going to use. Yali Madad. Yali Madad.
Yali Madad.
Yali
Madad.
Bye everyone.
Yali Madad.
Bye everyone.
Thank you so much. Bye.
Thank you. Yali Madad.
Yali Madad.
Yali Madad.
Thank you so much.
Yali Madad.
Thank you.
Yali Madad.
Yali Madad. Thank you. Thank you.
Yali Madad, thank you.
Thank you, Yali Madad.
Yali
Yali
Madad.
Madad.
Thank you.
Yali Madad. Yali Madad.
Thank you, Yali Madad.
Yali Madad.
Can we have his email, Dr. Hasham's email address?
Send the email to beautifultoview@msn.com. I'm putting it in the chat as well, so you can see it. This is it. beautifultoview@msn.com. Okay, somebody is agreed to take the emails for him.
Oh, so
Sorry.
Dr. Hasham can reply our emails?
He will either reply or he will answer in the lectures. msn.com. The first one was wrong. It's msn.com.